It's Tuesday, the 4th of November. Here are some headlines making wave in the news dailies. We'll begin with the Daily Independent. Leading headlines say decline in oil prices threatens Nigerians' fiscal stability. You can read the full story on the front paper and the complete story on page 29 of the Daily Independent. Beside the broad picture here, we have Chad closes border with Nigeria over security concerns. You can read the complete story on page 7 of the Daily Independent. Coverage deficit strains Nigerians with 5G phones. You can read the complete story on page 6 of the Daily Independent. Report exposes government officials as major perpetrators of attacks on journalists. You can read the complete story on page 6 of the Daily Independent. We try to save PDP, says Diri at formal defection to APC. You can read the complete story on page 7 of the Daily Independent paper. And below the picture, we have fresh crisis hits PDP as Abdurrahman resumes as acting national chairman. You can see the story on the front paper and the complete story on page 29 of the Daily Independent newspaper. Now, on the top of the newspaper, experts blame toxic food preservation in Nigeria on poor storage and weak enforcement. You can see part of the story on the front paper and you can read the complete story on page 7 of the Daily Independent newspaper. Trump says killings in Nigeria, national tragedy transcend tribe, religion, ADC. You can see the story is on the front page and the complete story, you can get it on page 6 of the Daily Independent paper. Now over to Vanguard. In Vanguard, the leading story here says Trump, NSA service chiefs meet. The writer says as US president intensifies threat. Get the complete story on page 5 of the Vanguard paper. At the top of the newspaper, we have Anambra. INEC vows enhanced results management, credible poll. The writer says IGP warns IBOB, ESN against disruptions. You can get the full story on page 11 of the Vanguard newspaper. Security shuts PDP secretariat amid escalating tensions. You can read the full story on page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper. Beside our story, we have NAD fought federal government's welfare claims, demands truth over fiction. You can read the complete story on page 25 of the Vanguard newspaper. And above the stories, we have pension fund investment and federal government securities rise 18.1% to 15.8 trillion naira. You can read the complete story on page 19 of the Vanguard newspaper. Now we'll move to Tribune newspaper, and here our leading story says PDP crisis, Anyanwu's faction takes over national secretariat. The writer says I have resumed today as acting chairman, says Abdurrahim, as police shot party office. You can read the complete story on page 16 of the Nigerian Tribune. Below the broad picture here, we have NSA service chiefs meet over Trump's stance on Nigeria. You can read the complete story on page 4 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. Below the picture, we have federal government releases 50 exemptions reliefs under new tax reform laws. You can get the full story on page 5 of the Nigerian Tribune. We have 15% petroleum tax. Premature import restrictions may lead to supply shortage, higher pump prices, LCCI warns. You can get the complete story on page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune. Troops kill 19 bandits for incursion into Shanunu local government area in Kano. You can get the full story on page 26 of Nigerian Tribune. African loses $135 billion annually to lead poisoning, says World Health Organization. You can get the full story on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune. Above the paper, stay away from Anambra election. IGP warns IPOB, ESN, and others. You can get the full story on page 15 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. Now over to the Nation newspaper. Leading story here says, 𝐓𝐸 joined APC to stop Bayelsa from being buried with PDP. Part of the story is on the front page of the newspaper, and you can get the complete story on page 3 of the Nation's newspaper. Above the leading story, we have 𝐓𝐨 celebrates scholarship impact, unveils cyber labs at Empowering Futures 2025. You can get the full story on page 27 of the Nation newspaper. Then above the newspaper, we have, dear Mr. President, please do not let this 15% import tariff punish Nigerian again. The story is on the front paper here, but you can get the complete story on page 3 of the Nation newspaper. Now to the Punch newspaper. Our leading story here says, governments battle 𝐍𝐞𝐰 as PDP factions jostle for control. The writer said, police seal PDP headquarters, 𝐍𝐞𝐰-backed chair moves in, Damagum block films, tension ahead convention. You can get the complete story on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. At the top of the newspaper, we have Tinubu move to appoint new ambassadors amid US tension. The writer says, President meets Sugar today. US federal government officials deepen talks. You can read the complete story on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Beside our story, we have 𝐓𝐸 joins APC, tags PDP, sinking ship. We can get the complete story on page 16 of the Punch newspaper. Below the leading story, we have Amupitan visits Anambra, parties sign peace accord. You can get the complete story on page 18 of the Punch newspaper. Oops, Labour rejects 20,000 naira notes. You can get that story on page 21 of the Punch newspaper. Now, NDLEA discovers new cannabis variants, California loud in Lagos. You can read the complete story on page 5 of the Punch newspaper. ANPP bloc sets tough terms to back Tinubu's 2027 bid. You can get the complete story on page 9 of the Punch newspaper. Now over to the Daily Trust. Our leading story here says, US threat, what federal government should do, diplomats. The story is on the front page, but you can read the complete story on pages 3 and 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Below this picture here, we have pro-𝐍𝐞 NWC faction takes over PDP secretariat. You can read the complete story on page 5 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Pregnancy cases on the rise in Borno IDP camps. You can get the complete story on page 24 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Nigerian stocks shed 244.9 billion naira amid Trump's threats. You can get the complete story on page 21 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Strike, Tinubu orders immediate resolution. You can read the complete story on page 7 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Above the newspaper here, we have at 1,422 naira per dollar, naira records highest gain in October. You can read the full story on page 20 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Parties, voters reject Niger local government pool, Bagos convoy attacked. You can read the complete story on page 10 of the Daily Trust newspaper. 19 bandits killed in Kano as border attacks escalate. You can read the complete story on page 6 of the Daily Trust newspaper. If any of the headline caught your attention, you can get the copy of the newspaper and read the full story.
Visit Housing TV Africa on YouTube and click on the subscribe button. Subscribe to Housing TV Africa to stay updated on latest happenings in Nigeria's housing sector. Follow our social media pages, like and share our posts on Facebook, Housing TV Africa, on Twitter, Housing TV Africa, Instagram, Housing TV Africa. Join the conversation and keep up with latest housing updates.
Housing TV Africa, your first in housing development broadcasting.